Valerie Bertinelli shared deeply personal stories during her recent interview, especially about her complicated yet enduring relationship with Eddie Van Halen. Even after their divorce, they remained close, living together for a while and showing a bond built on respect and love. Valerie revealed how Eddie's second wife, Janie, had left him a few years before his death, though Janie was present at Eddie's final moments. But what really happened between them? This is just the beginning of what will leave you speechless.
That you know that you feel for the people that are closest to you, that love always wins, no matter what, even when they're gone. I've been working so hard for so long. I just want to know what true joy feels like.
The more vulnerable I've gotten, the more real, the more honest, the more at peace I feel.
Valerie Bertinelli on life after Eddie Van Halen. Valerie Bertinelli, a beloved actress and television personality, has always been open about her personal journey, and recently, she took center stage once again. Appearing on QFM 96's radio show, hosted by Tana Elliott, Valerie discussed her latest memoir, Enough Already, Learning to Love the Way I Am Today. In this intimate and reflective conversation, she offered listeners a closer look into her life, her relationship with the late Eddie Van Halen, and the lessons she's learned about love, loss, and self-acceptance. At the heart of this interview, Valerie focused on her enduring relationship with Eddie Van Halen, the legendary guitarist. Though their romantic relationship ended over 2 decades ago, the bond between them remained strong. Valerie described it as a relationship that, despite their separation, never lost its foundation of friendship and respect. In fact, as she shared with Tana Elliott, the end of their marriage wasn't the end of their connection. Far from it. Instead, it marked the beginning of a new kind of relationship, one that transcended traditional expectations of what ex-spouses should be. Their divorce was unlike most. Valerie explained how they chose to avoid courtroom battles and lawyers, opting for a mediator to keep things peaceful, especially for their son, Wolfgang. Even after separating, they lived together until Valerie found a new home, with Eddie personally checking that it was close enough for their son's safety and convenience, reflecting their ongoing care for each other. This decision, while unconventional, was a reflection of the deep care that still existed between them, even after their romantic relationship had ended. Valerie acknowledged that, in the early stages of their separation, Eddie had wrestled with feelings of anger, a natural response to the end of a long-standing partnership. However, as time passed, their mutual respect and love for each other endured. In fact, these feelings allowed them to reconnect on a deeper, more meaningful level, fostering a closeness that lasted until Eddie's untimely death in October of 2020. Sometimes, the people we think we've let go of come back into our hearts in ways we least expect, Valerie reflected during the interview, summarizing her relationship with Eddie. Their bond evolved over time, but never truly faded, built on love, respect, and understanding despite life's changes. When asked about Eddie's second wife, Janie Levi, and whether Valerie's reflections might cause discomfort, Valerie admitted she wasn't sure. She mentioned that Janie had moved out a few years before Eddie's passing, but acknowledged that Janie was present during his final moments, showing their connection remained significant. Valerie's reflections on this topic demonstrated her understanding of the complexities of relationships. As she explained during the interview, love is not always a simple, linear path. It changes, evolves, and sometimes it lingers in ways we don't fully expect or understand. The bond she shared with Eddie was unique, and she respected the fact that his relationship with Janie had its own significance, even if it wasn't always easy to define. The timeline of Eddie and Valerie's relationship helps explain their lasting bond. After separating in 2002, they officially divorced in 2007. Eddie married Janie Levi in 2009, and Valerie found love with Tom Vitale, marrying him in 2011. However, despite moving forward with Tom, Valerie openly discussed the difficulties in their marriage, revealing she filed for divorce in November of 2021. Valerie's honesty is what makes her book so impactful. She doesn't avoid the challenges she's faced, but embraces them as moments for growth. One of the most touching parts of her book recalls Eddie's final moments, with Valerie and their son Wolfgang by his side. As Eddie took his last breath, they exchanged a final, "I love you," a memory that Valerie cherishes, symbolizing their deep connection even in death. Even when we say goodbye, love can linger in the spaces we least expect, Valerie writes in her book. This powerful sentiment, echoed in her interview, serves as a reminder of the complex, enduring nature of love. It's a theme that resonates throughout Valerie's story, as she navigates the intersections of love, loss, and memory. Eddie Van Halen may have passed at 65, leaving behind a legendary career as one of the greatest guitarists of all time. But to those who knew him best, he left behind something even more profound, an everlasting imprint on their hearts. Valerie's journey of self-acceptance is at the core of her new book. As she continues to move forward, she hopes to inspire others to embrace the messy, beautiful contradictions of life and love. For Valerie, every ending is simply a new beginning, an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to love in new ways. Her story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and her message is one of hope, healing, and self-love. Life doesn't always follow the path we expect, but that doesn't mean we can't find joy in the journey. Valerie said towards the end of the interview, her words reflect the wisdom she has gained through her experiences, both the joyful and the painful. As she embarks on this new chapter of her life, she remains committed to embracing every twist and turn, knowing that each step brings her closer to becoming the person she was always meant to be. For Valerie Bertinelli, the journey of self-love is ongoing. Her story is not just one of surviving heartbreak and loss, but of thriving in the face of it. And as she continues to share her experiences with the world, she reminds us all that we, too, have the power to embrace our own messy, beautiful, and ultimately enough lives. Love, loss, and their final goodbye. Valerie Bertinelli, known for her candid nature, recently shared a deeply personal reflection on Instagram about her former husband, Eddie Van Halen. Her post came after watching a television show featuring their son, Wolfgang Van Halen, where he discussed Eddie's life and iconic music career. As Valerie attempted to watch the show, she found herself stopping it multiple times, overwhelmed by memories that were both beautiful and painful. It brought back years of reflection on her relationship with Eddie and the complex nature of their connection, which, despite ending in divorce, remained deeply significant in her life. Valerie and Eddie's relationship spanned over 2 decades, a time marked by love, challenges, and eventual heartbreak. They married in 1981, a union that was often under public scrutiny due to Eddie's immense fame as the legendary guitarist for Van Halen. Looking back, Valerie admitted something that took her years to fully realize. Eddie wasn't her soulmate, despite her early belief that he was. The challenges they faced, particularly Eddie's struggles with substance abuse and infidelity, strained their relationship and ultimately led to their separation in 2001 and their divorce in 2007. It's never easy to admit the cracks in the foundation, Valerie remarked, a sentiment that perfectly encapsulates the emotional toll of their relationship. Yet, despite the difficulties, their bond never completely disappeared. When Eddie passed away in 2020 due to throat cancer complications, Valerie felt the loss deeply, as if a piece of her own life had ended. She confessed that, in some ways, she cast herself in the role of a grieving widow, despite their separation 20 years prior. The emotions surrounding his death were complicated. She wasn't his wife anymore, but they shared an unbreakable connection through their son, Wolfgang. Valerie's reflection on her grief led her to realize that Eddie's passing had a profound impact on her, even though their romantic relationship had long been over. The pain of watching her son, Wolfgang, reflect on his father's legacy in the show. Behind the music made her reconsider her role as both a mother and a former wife. She wondered about the choices she had made over the years and how those choices had shaped her family. It wasn't easy for Valerie to confront these memories, but it was necessary. In fact, Valerie shared how Wolfgang's experience of being featured on the show was both a healing and challenging process. Wolfgang took to social media to express his gratitude for the opportunity to reflect on his father's life and legacy. But he also admitted that it was difficult to relive certain moments. His openness about his emotions struck a chord with Valerie, reinforcing how Eddie's presence continued to shape their lives, even after his death. Grief doesn't follow a timeline, Valerie shared during an interview, emphasizing that even years after their divorce, Eddie's death affected her in ways she hadn't anticipated. While Valerie and Eddie's romantic relationship ended long ago, their history together never truly faded. They were united by Wolfgang, whom Valerie described as the best thing to come from their time together. It was a sentiment that echoed in many of her reflections despite the pain and challenges. Their shared love for their son remained at the core of their connection. Wolfgang was the bridge between their past and present, a constant reminder of the love they once shared. Valerie also opened up about the days leading up to Eddie's death, recounting how she and Wolfgang stayed by his side, bringing small comforts to his hospital room. In those final moments, they tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, ordering Eddie's favorite foods, pizza and burritos, trying to find joy in what were otherwise heart-wrenching days. Valerie described how they spent those last days together, savoring the small joys of Eddie's favorite foods and the simple act of being present with one another. But what happens when love lingers in ways we can't quite define? Valerie found herself grappling with this question as she recounted the profound bond they shared until the very end. In interviews following Eddie's passing, Valerie often spoke about their unique connection. Even though their romantic relationship had ended, the emotional closeness between them never fully disappeared. They shared a love that wasn't bound by the terms of their marriage or their eventual separation. Valerie recalled Eddie's openness with his feelings, something she cherished deeply. He was never shy about expressing his love, and in those final moments, that vulnerability left a lasting imprint on her. As Valerie looked back on her life with Eddie, she reflected on how his transparency with his emotions was something she would always hold dear. Their final exchanges of love and their shared moments of comfort were a testament to the strength of their bond, even in the face of death. For Valerie, those last days spent with Eddie weren't just about saying goodbye. They were about reaffirming the love that had always been there, even when the marriage itself had ended. Sometimes, the hardest goodbyes are the ones that take you by surprise, Valerie said, hinting at the emotional depth of their final moments together. Wolfgang Van Halen's fight to honor his father's legacy. Wolfgang Van Halen's connection to his iconic last name has been both a blessing and a curse, especially as he navigated his own music career. Being the son of the legendary Eddie Van Halen meant that Wolfgang was born into the shadow of a rock icon, a legacy that carried immense pressure. From an early age, he shared a close relationship with his father, but Eddie's early death in 2020 marked a devastating loss that shook Wolfgang to his core. In a candid reflection, Wolfgang has often spoken about how deeply intertwined his life and career have been with his father's, and how his journey through music has been marked by both love and heartache. At just 15 years old, Wolfgang joined Van Halen as the band's bassist, a significant moment in both his and his father's lives. The role was previously held by Michael Anthony, and Wolfgang's entry into the band stirred mixed reactions from fans. Many questioned whether he was too young or if he had earned the position on his own merits. As he discussed in his Behind the Music special, this scrutiny weighed heavily on him, especially since he joined the band not for fame, but to be closer to his father during a time when Eddie's health was rapidly deteriorating. During the early 2000s, Eddie Van Halen's struggles with addiction were well documented, and his health took a severe downturn following his divorce from Valerie Bertinelli in 2005. Wolfgang believed that his presence in the band was more than just a musical decision. He felt that by being around, he could help stabilize his father's lifestyle. As a teenager, he took on the enormous responsibility of trying to keep his father grounded during these dark times. His influence seemed to work, and in 2007, Eddie made the decision to enter rehab, a hopeful moment for the family. But even the best intentions can't erase the pain that comes from public judgment. Wolfgang learned this lesson all too well. Despite his positive impact on his father's life, Wolfgang faced harsh criticism from some Van Halen fans. Many accused him of being unworthy of his role in the band, with some even suggesting that he mimed his performances. The constant doubts about his musical contributions and his abilities cut deeply. Adding to the tension, Wolfgang's relationship with bandmate David Lee Roth was strained, especially after Roth refused to record a song Wolfgang had helped write. It was clear that even within the band, he was struggling to find acceptance and recognition. Wolfgang's personal life was also marked by tragedy and resilience. When he was just 8 years old, his father was diagnosed with tongue cancer, a diagnosis that would set the stage for a long battle with illness. Although Eddie initially fought off the disease, the cancer eventually spread. In 2017, Eddie was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, with doctors grimly predicting that he only had weeks to live. However, through treatments in Germany, Eddie was able to extend his life by 3 more years, giving him precious time with his family, especially with Wolfgang. But what happens when time itself seems to slip away, leaving behind dreams unfulfilled? The Van Halen family had hopes of reuniting for one final tour, a chance for the band to perform together again with Wolfgang opening the shows. This idea was met with excitement, but ultimately it never came to be. Eddie's health issues, combined with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, prevented him from continuing his treatments in Germany, and the tour plans fell apart. During this time, Wolfgang chose to delay the release of his own band, Mammoth WVH's album, so that he could spend more time with his father during his final years. When Eddie passed away in October 2020, the impact on Wolfgang was profound. He was the one to publicly announce his father's death, a moment that broke the hearts of millions of fans around the world. Shortly after, Wolfgang released the single Distance, a deeply personal song that featured home videos of his father. The song, which had been written before Eddie's death, was meant to be shared while Eddie was still alive. Performing the song now carries a heavy weight for Wolfgang, as every time he plays it, he is reminded of his father's absence. The balance between honoring Eddie's legacy and coping with his grief has been an emotional journey for him. The pain of loss doesn't end when the world moves on. So how does one keep going? After Eddie's death, Wolfgang found himself navigating a world of grief, while also dealing with the pressures that came with his family's name. Hospitals, in particular, became a significant trigger for him, as they reminded him of the painful final days of his father's life. Additionally, Wolfgang was forced to confront false stories in the media about his family, stories that misrepresented the deep love and connection they all shared with Eddie. Wolfgang has been open about his struggles with depression and anxiety, issues that were exacerbated by his father's substance abuse, a dishonest former partner, and the constant pressure of living up to the Van Halen legacy. Internet trolls further complicated Wolfgang's grief. As the son of a rock legend, he found himself the target of cruel comments from people who questioned his talent and his place in the music world. This relentless negativity took a toll on Wolfgang's mental health, as he felt the weight of his famous last name in every aspect of his life. But despite the harshness of the online world, Wolfgang has chosen to rise above the noise. Even in the darkest times, stepping away can be the hardest but most freeing choice. In interviews, Wolfgang has mentioned that stepping back from the constant online negativity has been one of the most important things he has done for his mental health. Although he has often addressed the hate directly, especially through his music, Wolfgang has realized that protecting his peace of mind requires distance from the toxicity. By focusing on his music, his family, and his own well-being, Wolfgang has begun to find a path forward, away from the shadow of his father's fame, yet always carrying the love and legacy of Eddie Van Halen with him. Wolfgang's story is one of resilience and love. As he continues to navigate the complexities of being both Eddie Van Halen's son and a musician in his own right, he remains committed to honoring his father's memory while also forging his own path. But as Wolfgang himself has learned, even the brightest legacies come with shadows, and finding your way through them is a battle only you can fight.